Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode number 19 of IT Mythbusters series, where we take up topics that are pretty hot and find out, is it a myth or are we here to bust the myth? So I'm your host, Suresh GP from TaUB Solutions. I'm joined by my esteemed friend, Mike Fulton, who's the CIO of Vernovis. So we are
Good to see
here
you, Suresh.
yeah, it's great to see you again, Mike. And a lot of our viewers have been talking about what do we have for this episode and what is taking us into the technology front, because a lot of our viewers are from technology background. They're trying to be on top of what's the next big gig. So what do we have today for our episode that we want to mull over and bring that perspective to our wide viewers around the world?
So for today's episode number 19, I thought we would talk a little bit about a buzzword, a topic that's been going around called platform engineering. And I think the myth that we're going to propose is that platform engineering is just another meaningless buzzword.
Or is it a hype? Okay. Now give us a view, and this is a great topic that you brought in, because a lot of people are proposing this, and let's find out. But before that, can you just give us an enlightened view of what does platform engineering mean for the rest of the viewers, in a way that people can comprehend? Sometimes it just goes over the head, people get confused. So just to make sure that we have a level setting for everyone who are attending this episode, can you give us some insights, Mike?
Sure. And in fact, I'll say, I'll be real transparent. This was a good level set for me. I've been hearing this term platform engineering for 6-9 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. I've actually seen a little bit of noise, a little bit of advertisement, a little bit of conversation on Twitter about platform engineering and over on LinkedIn as well. And I've kind of ignored it a little bit. And so as we kind of thought about this buzzword, I had to do a little bit of research to really understand what were people talking about. And so what we came up with for a definition really is that platform engineering is the discipline of designing and building tool chains and workflows that enable self-service capabilities for software engineering organizations in the cloud-native era. Platform engineers are going to provide an integrated product, most often referred to as an internal developer platform, covering the entire life cycle of building and running an application.
Great. I think that's
the context.
That's a great context. Now let's take a step back and try to understand this a little better. Now, let's understand the genesis a little bit of this from my own practical experience. A lot of times people and organizations are doing about velocity. We moved on to a cloud. There are so many moving parts. Frankly speaking, that you don't know where you're getting lost. So a lot of organizations were struggling to make a simplified way of working, because there's so much moving parts in terms of application development, infrastructure operations, middleware, enterprise architect doing around. We did build something level of CI/CD pipelines and automation, but guess what? There's so much moving parts. With so much moving parts, the developers are also having a nightmare from the time that they write a user story till that gets to a release. So, and also a lot of times we took the customers do not want to look at what do I need to code. It's like they wanted to have something like low code, no code, which is much easier for them to adopt and adapt rather than just doing everything on scratch. So things are becoming complex today with all the advent of new era of cloud native applications, containerizations and stuff. So it's not that easy for organizations to sustain and move in the part. So we were looking at redefining the overall development role or development ecosystem to make it more meaningful, easy, simplified to do it. That's where I think this is kind of getting into the genesis of why something like platform engineering even should be relevant. or even a conversation to do that. Is that what you see, and what do your take about why people are even talking about this concept called platform engineering?
Well, I mean, to me, it's really interesting, right? So I feel like kind of reading that definition
Right.
and learning more about what people are talking about as platform engineering feels like, in a lot of ways, a summation of a lot of my career.
Right.
Right? I got a chance to be the chief cloud architect and the chief IT for IT architect
Right.
at Procter and Gamble, and so we did a lot of these sorts of things, trying to set up tool chains and architect the workflows that the development teams would leverage as we were working in the cloud. I was the chief innovation officer at a cloud company called Expedient. When I was there, we were actually putting out into the market a multi-cloud capability that would allow people to work across different cloud providers because of the challenges that we're talking about in this space. That Expedient Control platform was designed to help abstract away some of the challenges of working with individual individual cloud providers with a single workflow system that would give the user the developer the same workflow regardless of where they're at. So this is something that we never talked about it as platform engineering. We use different words,
Sure.
but it's something that to me has been a critical component of the cloud transformation journey for organizations for the last 15 years. And I think organizations are now finally starting to catch on to that. They're starting to realize that the more you focus on your developers and making your developers more efficient, the better off your organization is actually going to be. And I don't know, Suresh, did you ever read the Phoenix Project?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
So
So the Phoenix Project was a great book. It talked about kind of DevOps, the creation of DevOps, and how things worked. Well, there was a follow-on that I don't know how many other people read. It wasn't quite as popular as the Phoenix Project. It's called the Unicorn Project.
Unicorn. Yep. Yep.
Did you read that one too?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I mean, the
Exactly.
Unicorn Project was all about platform engineering.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And I think you make a great point, Mike, about unicorn. So let's take this one. This is a very important point that you mentioned around the Phoenix Project. We focused on DevOps, and with Unicorn, with IT Revolution Press, we are talking about shifting that gears towards more platform engineering. Now, Gartner expects by 2026, 80% of software engineering organizations will establish something like a platform teams as internal providers. They are reusable services, components, because the whole intent is the platform engineering team will ultimately solve the problem of cooperation between software developers and operations. That's a very powerful statement. Now, if we want to be the centralized arm or engine to balance this whole part, I look at this as a buffet of service. So think about this. You want to have someone like a cloud ops team. You want to look at infrastructure as a code. You want something like a security as a code. You wanted to do some of those things. I want to use this as a buffet of service that will be managed by this platform team. Now, by the way, platform team should have cross-functional competencies, right? They need to have competencies around different technologies, towers, services that we will probably be more meaningful. So you will bring those cohort. So tomorrow you want infrastructure as a code or a containerization of a particular thing, you raise a ticket. And this team will provide this as a service. So this is much more easier to consume, and it just becomes a lot more easier. So which means I standardize all these capabilities like a menu card for you to consume. So for me, the user's experience is going to be much more predictable. I don't need to hop over to L1, L2, L3, or one team, a cloud ops team, or enterprise architect teams to do that. So it's going to make my life a lot more easier from a user experience. Is that something what I'm seeing also, that there is a merit to bring this together but there is a caveat about the org structure change, because still we are into application development, infrastructure operations to do that. So if you want to build something of a cohort like platform engineering or a tribe or a squad, it also needs to make some level of structural and organizing changes. So I want to ask that, is that going to be easy in large organizations as they start thinking about platform engineering?
I actually think it'll be easier in large organizations than it is in smaller organizations, right? A large organization has the resources to be able to devote a set of people to a team like this. In fact, when I was at Nationwide, we saw this. We created, I don't know that we called it a platform engineering team at the time, but that's what it was. We created a toolchain team that was focused on this scope and space and provided efficiencies for the rest of the organization, provided benefit for the rest of the development teams and the operations teams that were doing work. So I think large organizations will lean into this and will absolutely get quick benefit from it. As organizations get a little bit smaller, it may be a little trickier.
Yeah.
And so that'll be for me one, the organization that's 500 million to $1 billion in size that has an IT team somewhere between 25 and 100. Are they going to have the capacity? Are they going to have the skills to be able to put this kind of team forward? I don't know. I think that may be a little bit of a challenge. I think that's where it's going to be really important for them to, those sorts of organizations, especially to maybe reach into industry best practices and industry knowledge sources that maybe they historically haven't. Things like, I'll use an old friend of mine, the IT for IT standard. The IT for IT standard and its new version 3.0 is actually the reference architecture for a digital factory.
Right.
And so it is the reference architecture for platform engineering teams to bring themselves to life. Correct. And not have to reinvent the wheel. So for me, that's something I think organizations will have to lean into, will have to do more of.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to flip it back over to you here. I am really interested to get your perspective on what's the difference between platform engineering and SRE? Because I commonly hear people say those two are the same thing.
Right. No, it is not the same thing, and that's great that you brought in. There are some roles called platform SRE as well, right? Yeah. So there is sometimes what happens is the site reliability engineering role is focused on reliability and resilience, as we all know, from the left to right. But it's also important about your level playing field, right? So, for example, there are organizations which have an embedded SRE. That means an SRE is embedded into every product team to do that. Sometimes they ask as a tool SRE, which means they are only focusing on tool chain, where we're looking at the site reliability engineering. For that, sometimes they only look at platforms being provided. When they say platforms, it's basically provisioning of the services. So it's a very wrong notion that platform engineering and SRE are the same. We are two different parts. But I'm also wanting to highlight one of the important parts of skill development. One of the most important challenge that organizations are going to face as they shift their gears or pivot into platform engineering is the level of skill set and competencies that you're going to build. You need to get to build from I-shaped to T-shaped to I-shaped to T-shaped to pie-shaped and comb-shaped skills, which means the level of demand that you need to look at from cross-functional technology towers, looking at some of the best practices like what you said as IT for IT, site reliability engineering, DevOps, AIOps, machine learning. This is all going to be super important because today, the level in which we are trying to drive transformations cannot be driven without cross-functional competencies and cross-technology competencies. So getting someone to build a set of army marshals who could be at a pace where they can actually make sense of the overall gamut of the entire ecosystem is going to be the biggest challenge, because today we still live in specialist, right? But I think as we go through this, we need to build a level of generalist as well, who probably are able to connect the dots quickly and see how we can make that work rather than just being a specialist. Well, there is a great merit on being a specialist. That's why you were brought into the ecosystem of a job. But today's demanding part requires us to have quick way to intervene with third-party providers, API calls, web services, and multi-cloud environments. So your current competencies will not be adequate to step into the platform engineering. Do you think so?
I do. I think you're right in a lot of ways. And I think that is a deep enough topic. It could be a topic for a future episode.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of this one, I know we're just about out of time. I do want to come back to our myth for the day. Platform engineering is just a meaningless buzzword. What do you think? Have we verified that myth or have we busted it?
No, so if you look at these conversations, I think there is a deeper meaning and insights about this platform engineering. As most of the organizations are thinking to thrive beyond 2024 and beyond, they're trying to prepare, make things a lot more easier, safer, faster, and cheaper. Now, if you look at with that vocabulary, you need to reinvent the whole wheel. You need to reinvigorate in terms of the new operating model. So I look at platform engineering as a new operating model, provided you do all the caveats that we just talked about in terms of the ways that we are working. But that's a very necessary way to survive in the digital age with so many moving parts to it. So for me, I think organizations are increasingly contemplating about the value of platform engineering, but it has to be adapted in the organizational context. So let's not look at platform engineering as a big canvas that everybody just falls into it, but there has to be tweaks, adapt and adopt model so that it becomes relevant to that part. So I'm not ironing out as just a meaningless buzzword, but there is a level of homework to be done to make it relevant to the context of the organization. So I'll leave it there to you for you to tell the final word.
Yeah, I think for me, I think you hit on it. That concept of we're entering an age of a new IT operating model.
Right.
And platform engineering, as we've defined it here today, I think is a core and critical capability for the new IT operating model. So I think the myth is busted. I don't like the term platform engineering, so I will use my soapbox here to say I would love it if this was called something like a digital factory engineer.
Sure.
Rather than a platform engineer. Platform is such a nebulous term.
Correct.
And when I think of platform, I think of SAP as a platform, Salesforce as a platform. I think about those big, broad business systems.
Sure.
So to me, I would rather not lean into that platform engineering, and I'd rather use digital factory engineering.
Sure.
But either way, whatever you call it, I think it's still a critically important capability going forward. So I would say we've busted this myth.
Awesome. It's been a real pleasure listening to this, and our viewers would be completely enlightened by the term of platform engineering or the digital factory engineering. I'd strongly recommend you to look at IT for IT 3.0. It's been a game changer of how we see organizations moving into the digital factory model, right? Anything is a part of a digital product and services. Everybody in the value chain starts to resonate with that philosophy. That's a great time for us to end the episode number 19 on platform engineering. And I hope that you had some fun on the session. Look forward to seeing you in our next episode of IT Mythbusters. Until then, keep watching and posting your comments. Any final thoughts, Mike?
No, it's just been, as always, a great time chatting with you, Suresh. I learn a lot from every single one of these conversations. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
You too, everyone. And then we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much.